many thanks for spending some time with me to discuss the topic of a strong digital Europe today. You are a member of the European Parliament with a passion and a mission for technology and digital in Europe. What are your top 3 priorities in order to boost digital in Europe in the coming years?
Thank you for having me. I think it's an excellent initiative to talk about the emerging technologies and digital economy. One of my priorities would be, of course, artificial intelligence, because I do believe it's transforming every sector of our lives. It's data policy, because I also think data will be the fuel and the main value for the future economy. And of course, an ethical and legal framework for all the new technologies that the Industry 4.0 will be using, which is IoT, 5G, and everything else that would be included in the future.
The role of the regulator is to protect the citizens. However, for innovation to flourish, the innovator must be able to be on the edge sometimes. Let's talk now about the balance between innovation on the one hand and regulation on the other hand. In the US or China, the balance is towards the innovator. What is the right balance for Europe?
Well, in Europe we have different values, I would say. We respect a lot the rights, the human rights and the rights of the individual person, respecting its privacy, but also to avoid any discrimination that might occur or inequalities that these technologies could cause. So I would say we might be a bit slower into developing or allowing innovation to happen, but at the same time we are open-minded, innovation-friendly. We try to have a legal certainty like GDPR so that innovation can happen, but at the same time protecting our democracy, having transparency, and having the best environment for our citizens. Because for us, it's not just about profit, it's about citizens, making AI or new technologies work to benefit citizens.
We talked about technology as an opportunity for Europe. Let's now talk about technology as a threat. With the advent of deep tech, such as artificial intelligence, how do we make sure technology does not boost inequalities in the European job market or threaten our democracies with the spread of fake news?
We've realized that people's perception could be manipulated online, so we could have a threat to democracy. This is just one case scenario, but the problem we face is also lack of freedom of choice or options, or citizens that are unaware that they are being manipulated. Deepfakes could cause a huge lack of trust to what we see. You can see a video and wonder if it's true or not. So wanting to avoid that, we try to make sure that citizens will acquire better digital skills, because this is what creates inequalities for the future and the labor market. So we want them to have digital skills, to be able to be aware of the impact and the challenges of the new technologies, and I think this is the first step.
As opposed to the US or China, Europe is a fragmented market for entrepreneurs, a collection of countries with specific languages, cultures, rules and regulations, be it for recruiting local talent or doing business. What are the policies that are needed so that entrepreneurs can address Europe as a single domestic market?
We have progressed a lot, but we still have to remove the barriers that are still there to have a level playing field for all the new companies and startups. I think bankruptcy law, insolvency, tax treatment of options paid to the startup employees are things that we have to address. Grant funding cross-border is also something that we managed to achieve. We removed geo-blocking, which means that you cannot be discriminated as a European citizen and pay different value of the same service if you come from a different member state. One thing that we should change is also competition law and the way we define the market position dominance, because with data possession, things are changing. If we have a harmonized environment, then we're going to have more innovation. Still, we do have the need to develop tools of co-funding and taking the risk as Europe.
The dominant technology companies, the GAFA from the US, the Betix from China, are eating the world, arguably, with their platforms. What does Europe need to do to preserve its technological sovereignty?
First of all, we're in a global race for artificial intelligence, and we have different values and different availability of data. What we have to make sure is that we will have a framework of reciprocity. So whenever we allow access to European data, we will have the same access to Chinese or US data. And the second thing is a digital tax. So you will be paid for your data and you will be taxed where you're producing value and not where your company is located. This would help a lot to be able to have sovereignty and at the same time to avoid protectionism.
Europe has a shortage in digital skills. The European universities struggle to create enough startups. Women are still vastly underrepresented in digital, in education and jobs. What are the reforms that are needed in Europe to overcome these shortcomings?
I do think that we can build up more universities that are dealing with these new technologies. InvestEU is a funding opportunity for also digital skills, and I think Europe has realized this problem and we're doing more about that. I think it's also important because it helps us develop ecosystems for entrepreneurs, young people that want to start their own, develop their own ideas or have their own startups, and making sure that it will mentor them in a way to acquire more of the skills that they actually need. It's not just digital. So sometimes you need to understand how new materials work. This can help you be more and more innovative and also avoid duplication. If something exists, then you don't have to develop it yourself. You just have to have access to another system and be connected to that. So I think having EIT as a very important tool for Europe to implement pilot projects and help build this infrastructure is one of the best things we have done the last years.
Eva, thank you very much for a very enlightening conversation around the topic of Digital Europe today, here at the European Parliament.
Thank you for having me.